Hi, welcome back. On this episode, we're going to change the spark plugs on 2019 Hyundai Santa Fe XL. It's the model with the third row and the naturally aspirated six-cylinder. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification button. You can also check me out on Instagram at Clara Garage. Let's get started. Alright, so I got the hood already opened up. And first thing we need to do is get this cover out of our way. So all we got to do is just pull up and pull out, just like so. And now we can pull it out of the way. And there's no information or anything on the back side, it's just nothing. Alright, now the next step we're going to do before we start actually doing anything, we're going to take some compressed air and we're going to blow out all around the plugs. This way we don't have to worry about getting any contaminants inside the cylinders while we're working on it. Alright, so now we got those blown off. So we're going to do the front three cylinders first. They're the easier ones to get at. The back set's going to be a lot harder. So right here is our coil packs for the cylinders. And on this particular motor, it's cylinder 1, cylinder 2, cylinder 3, cylinder 4, cylinder 5, cylinder 6. So we're going to loosen off these 10mm bolts, and then our coil packs should just pull right out of there. Alright, now we should be able to just pull our coil packs right out. There's one. And there's 2. And then there's 3. And now our spark plugs are exposed. So you can see our spark plugs down in those holes. I'm going to put a little bit of compressed air just to make sure there's no dirt in there either. And now we're going to use a 5/8 spark plug socket. And we're going to get those out of there. So we just carefully slip in the hole, make sure we're on the plug. And then we'll take our ratchet and we should be able to break it free. So there's our number 2 spark plug. It looks pretty good actually. So these spark plugs have a little over 118,000 kilometers on them. They're original. The dealer was supposed to change them around 96,000 kilometers. They didn't. We had a miss a few weeks ago that I cleared. It was questionable whether it was a spark plug coil or I'm thinking more so bad gas. But that got me looking into the spark plugs. When we went to the dealer, they said that they hadn't been changed, but they were supposed to have been changed. So the dealer kind of dropped the ball on us, and they said I wouldn't void any warranty doing it myself. So I'm doing it myself. The new spark plugs costed $180 roughly, Canadian. And then I had asked them how much it would be for them to do this job, and they said it'd be at least a 3-hour job, and it would be $380 plus tax. So since I'm not going to void the warranty, or they said I would void the warranty doing it myself, I'm going to do it myself and save myself about $400 or so. So that's spark plug number 2. And then I wrote on a little piece of cardboard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's oriented the same way the engine is. And I made little slots, and I just took an X-Acto knife and made little plus sign cuts. So now I can take each spark plug out and stick it in the cardboard like so. And now I know where each one came from. So once I get them all out, I can look at them and have a better idea of how the engine's running and make sure everything's all the same. So nowhere on the vehicle shows what the spark plug gap is supposed to be. The manual doesn't show it either. And I was going to go see if I could find it on Google. And I was looking at the two spark plugs side by side, the new one and the old one, and the gap looks pretty much identical. So I'm going to call them good. And we'll look at these plugs at the very end, but you can see that along the porcelain there is starting to show some signs of wear and everything too. So it's definitely good to get these plugs changed. They're eventually going to give some trouble. They're probably good for a long time yet, but eventually they're going to give some trouble. And the spark plug number is they're at NGKIR, and then the number on it is SILZKR7B11. So now we're going to get our spark plug in, and I'm just going to put a small lick of Never Sees on here, just because. And now we're going to go back in, and we're just going to thread it in by hand. We want to make sure when we put it in that we don't bang it and close up the gap. So we just want to go nice and easy and take our time. All right, that's snug. And now we're going to tighten it up. And that should be good. Now we're going to go to the next one, and it's going to be the same thing for all these front ones. So the code that this thing threw when it had a miss said cylinder 4 misfire. So this is cylinder 4 that we're on right now, so I'm curious to see what it looks like. It does actually look slightly worse than the other one. Just looking at it there, the gap looks a little dirtier inside. And the spark plug has a little bit darker on the porcelain. Now we're going to put our next plug in. And another thing you want to make sure too is that the spark plugs are the same length, because you don't want them protruding further into the cylinder and then your piston might hit it. And you don't want them too shallow in the spark plug hole, because then you're not getting your spark where you want it, and you'll get a really bad burn, and you could end up eventually damaging the threads if you left it in too long. And now the last cylinder on the front. And that looks about the same as cylinder number 4. And even a little bit darker on the porcelain. So when you tighten the spark plugs, you tighten them when it's a new spark plug. You got to crush the crush washer, and you can kind of feel it gets when you get it snug. it's a little bit stiff, I guess might be the right word to say. And that's the crush washer crushing. And then when you once you get that crushed, then it gets tight, and you want to go about a quarter to half turn past that. I was looking online for torque specs, and I was finding 14 to 20. So you can see there's a little bit of resistance there, and then right about there it gets tight. So then we go about a quarter to a half turn past. And that should be good. And now we can put our coils back in. And we didn't have to take our wires off our coils either. So we'll just be able to slip them in. I am going to put just a little bit of dielectric grease on them. So I'm just going to put a small little dab right at the opening, and that will hopefully go in where we want it. So now we just slip them right in. And then we'll put our bolts back in, and I'm just going to put a little dab of Everseas on these too. And now we can tighten these up. Alright, and that's our front cylinders all done. If you had a 4-cylinder, they'd be right on the top, and it'd be the same thing basically. And then it'd just be one more cylinder, and it'd be a super easy, quick job. So our next step is to get to the back cylinders. They're going to be a lot harder to get to. So this is what we're kind of up against. We know that they are buried underneath this. So we're just going to be a few minutes and figure out how this all comes off, and then we'll continue on. All right, we're going to pull this plenum out now. So I've already gone ahead and pre-loosened everything off camera, and so everything's ready to come off. And I just loosely put everything back. So we're going to go part by part and undo all our connectors and bolts, and we'll be able to go from there. All right, so first thing you're going to want to take off is this air boot. So you got to take off the clamps and then pull those out. I pulled it off there too, but you don't have to do that right at the exact same time. And then I took this connector out, just get out of my way, and I had undid this clamp, so that's out of my way. And then this guy here, I took that off and pulled it out and out of my way as well. And same with this, out and out of my way. And then there's clamps on it. I'll show you those out of the vehicle. And then it took a lot of jiggling and working, but I was finally able to get it to come out. So I just had that loosely in there for now. So the duct had this style of clamp on it. And you can take these straight out. So the way that this works, these two hooks right here, they slip into, one slips into one of each hole on this piece here. Just like so. And then And then the bottom part, it slips in to the rounded part. So you can loosen this off, and then you're able to slip that right out. And then in my case, and your case is most likely going to be the same, this has been on there for a while, so it's kind of almost stuck. It doesn't want to spring out. So then I just went with my hands and kind of pulled it a bit on both sides to get it to break free from the rubber. And then I was able to get that rubber duct to start sliding off. Otherwise, I couldn't get it to budge. So you're probably going to have the same situation, but that's how these work. And so you can actually get them like right off, and then you can take that right out, and then you're able to free up the metal portion of it so it's loose, and then you should be able to slide it away. And then the next thing I did, I took the I took the throttle wire off. So you squeeze on that connector and it pulls out. It was a little bit stiff and took a little bit of muscle, but I was able to get it. And then there's a line right here. So you gotta take the clamp off that, and then I was able to get that off. There's a line on the back side that I couldn't get off until I had swung the plenum out. Then I was able to access it. But I'm going to pull that back off right now, but you probably won't be able to get that off until you have the plenum swung partway out of the way. And if I wasn't trying to record this, I could have changed the plugs without getting that final hose off. But for recording, being able to see, it's much better. And if you can get it off, it's always a good thing too. And then back here, there's another hose you got to get off. It was a pain too, but it wasn't too bad, but we got it. And then on the top of the plenum, there's these two connectors right here that come off. And then this one had a little clip thing. It's kind of hard to see now. And you put your screwdriver under it and just lift up real gently. And I thought I was lifting up pretty gently, but the top part broke off. If that happens, you're still able to get in from the bottom and push it. And it was also held on by a couple clamps here, and I had undid those. And then you have another electrical connector right here that you got to take off. And then these two bolts here, they come out. And then on the back of the motor, there's a bolt right back here that comes out, and it has a 14 mil head on it. And I was able to use a 1/4 inch ratchet with a shallow socket to get it out. And then we have a wire raceway. You got 3 bolts on there that come out, and everything's all 10 mil except for that one that was on the back. And then you got one other bolt right here holding that on. And then this is all loose. Oh, and there's also a electrical connector right here that you got to take off as well. So now this part here is loose and out of your way. And then there's 4 bolts down here you got to get off out as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we got these 4 right here. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And then we got 2 nuts we got to get out. So there's a nut right here. And then there's another nut right here. And now we're ready to remove the plenum. The hose clamp on the top right here, spin it down. I forgot to spin it down. It was spun up like that, and when I started pulling the plenum out, it caught on the sound ending and ripped it a little bit, which is kind of annoying, because if I would have had it like that, it would have just slid and it wouldn't have ripped it. So just keep that in mind when you do yours. So now we're able to pull this out. So we're just going to carefully pick it up and carefully slide it out with a little bit of a swinging motion. So we come up off the studs, and then I take this and kind of shove it underneath, just so it's out of my way. And you want to make sure you don't drop anything down in here or any dirt or anything, because that'll go directly in your engine. And now you just carefully pull it and swing it, and then we're clear. And this is your plenum out of the way. Yeah, it was on the back side right here. That was that one line I had a really hard time getting off. But you're actually able to, if you don't want to take it off, if you're struggling too much, you are able to swing it kind of about like that, so it's out of your way enough to do the spark plugs. And typically when I'm taking bolts and that out, I'll at least lay them on the floor or on a table, kind of roughly in the orientation that they came out, so everything goes back in where they belong. Or if I, for some reason, forget where things go, it helps gives me a bit of an idea of where I should be looking. So now we got our back 3 cylinders exposed. So we're able to start doing those, but we want to put a rag or something over these holes. So if you drop anything in here, it's potentially going into your engine and causing permanent damage. And if you look in here, you can see your valves. I was actually surprised with how dirty mine are, and I'm going to have to address that in the near future. Not sure if you'll be able to see it on the camera or not. But you can kind of, it's hard to tell how dirty they are, but they're pretty bad actually. And then same thing on the back side. So we're just going to take a rag and place it over. And now if we drop anything, it doesn't have a direct path into the engine. And when I was taking the plenum off and reaching stuff, I had to use the stool a few times to reach, so you may need a stool as well to do this job. So now I'm going to blow off the backside a little bit there before I pull the coils out, and then we'll get the coils out of our way. Alright, now we're going to take our bolts out for our coils. The 3 bolts there that are 10 mil, and then we'll be able to pull our coils out. And now we're able to pull our coils straight up. So straight up for the coils is kind of on a 45 towards the windshield, and then we'll be able to get them out. Now I'm just going to do a quick squirt of air in there to make sure there's no dirt or debris in there. And now we're able to use our 5A spark plug socket, and we can take our plugs out one at a time. So on the front, I use a longer extension. On the back, I'm using a shorter one. And then just a 3/8 drives ratchet. That still looks pretty good. And that's our number 1 cylinder. And again, I'm going to put a little bit of never sees on the threads, just a light little dust. And then carefully slip that back in. And now we tighten it up. And now we'll take the number 3 cylinder out, which would be the center one. That looks pretty nice too. So far I would say the back cylinders look better than the front cylinders for whatever reason. Now we'll carefully slip this one back in. And now we'll take our last spark plug out. And that looks pretty awesome too. It looks good. And that's our number 5 spark plug. That's all the spark plugs together. They all look not too bad. And this is nice because you can look at your plugs after and see how everything's running. For the most part, they look pretty good considering the mileage on them. Alright, so all our spark plugs are in now. And now we just got to put our coils back in and tighten them down. And I'm going to put a little dab of dielectric grease in all these too. And you always want to make sure that your same coils go back where they came from, in the sense that the right wire's in the right spot. Because if you ever mix them up, the engine's not going to run right. But now we can just slip this right in. And then slip this one in. And then the last one in. Now we can put our hardware back in to bolt them down. Then we're going to put a little bit of never sees on those. And now we'll use our 10mm socket to tighten those up. Perfect. Spark plugs are all in, and now we're ready to start throwing this back together. Probably should have pointed this out earlier. Right here, you can see this hole in this bracket. So this bracket right here, that's where that bolt goes in from this side onto the plenum to hold it in place. So when you're reaching in and around, that's what you're feeling for the bolt right here to get in and tighten and loosen it. So we'll make sure that there's no dirt or debris or tools or anything before we take our cover off. Everything looks good, nothing's catching my eye. And now we'll carefully take this shirt off of here. And then we'll give one last visual. Make sure nothing's inside. Probably one of my hairs. Make sure that gasket looks okay. Because if that gasket isn't okay, you're gonna have an air leak and your vehicle won't run right. But we look good. So now we can slip our plenum back in, kind of that same rotating motion. And we use the those two studs coming up that those two nuts were on. We use those to locate it. That's the easiest way. You kind of get in, above, onto there, and then down, and then it's in place. And then again, this is the back side. That's where that 14 millimeter bolt goes. And we want to look at this, make sure we don't see any dirt or debris on the mating surfaces. They look good. And now we're going to carefully slide this in. Now we'll take our wire raceway out of the way. We locate it. Now we're down and on. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start from the bottom, and we're going to put our 4 bolts in the front and our 2 stud nuts on. That's going to be the first place we're going to start. Because once we get this piece here on, we can't access because once we get our wires back in place, we can't access those other bolts. And these wires don't have anything to do with tightening down this plenum. All they are is just that's just to hold that wire raceway in where the factory wants it. So we're just going to get all of our hardware loosely started. There's one. There's 2. There's 3. 4. There's all 4 of those started. But they're not tight, they're not even snug. And now we're going to do the same thing with our studs. There's the one nut, and then there's the other nut. And now we're going to put these in as well. So they just drop down and then screw in. I'm just going to bring these up to snug. All right, and now we're going to get that bolt on the back side loosely started. So we're going to reach around and locate our bracket hole. So I was putting that back bolt in. I had to pull up just a little bit on the plenum to line it up, and then I was able to get it started. So I got everything in just loose, not tight at all. And before I go any further, on the throttle plate, like on the intake area, I want to make sure I have all my hoses reconnected and clamps on, because if for any reason I'm having trouble getting them on and I have to take the plenum air section back off again, I don't want to have to loosen everything. So I'm going to do that now, and then we'll go through tightening all these up. So we got this line right here we got to slip on. There's that one on. That went pretty good. And then, we have that really hard one to get to. There's this one here. It's pretty hard to see, and it goes on down there. That needs to slip on. There we go. We got that. And then there's this guy back here that slips on. And now that's on. So those were our 3 hard ones down at the bottom. We just got to get our clamps on now, and then those are done, and we'll keep on carrying everything, putting everything together. All right, so there's one on. Now I'm gonna come from that side. That's why I did it last time. All right, that one's on now. That went good. Now we just got this last one. And that one's on. All right, so we got all our bolts started. Now we're going to go and just bring them all to snug, and then we'll torque them. And when we do, we want to kind of start from the center and work our way out. Because if you start from the outside and work your way in, the material has nowhere to go and you'll end up getting leaks. So you start from the center and work your way out, and it makes it lay down flat versus going from the outside going in. Theoretically, there would be a hump of material and you wouldn't be getting a proper seal. All right, so I'm not going to tighten the one on the back until after we've tightened all of these. There's one on the back is really just for support, where the ones on the front, they're actually for that surface that we want to seal. So I'm going to worry about these ones first and then do that one after. So I don't have a manual for this engine, so I did a Google search, and they're saying 4 foot-pounds, which would be 48 inch-pounds. So you take your foot-pounds and multiply by 12 to get inch-pounds, and if you have inch-pounds, you can divide by 12 to get your foot-pounds. So we're going to do the same type of pattern, and we're going to torque those down. We're going to go, we're going to try to do half of that or a portion of it, and then the full torque. And when I took these out, they were pretty loose. I was actually able to get these front ones out. They were basically finger tight. So I'm going to start at 30 inch-pounds. That's as low as my ratchet goes. Now we're going to step up to 48. There's 40. There's 48. Alright, so this is secured on now. So we're going to do that back one. So I got my little 1/4 inch ratchet with my 14 mil. So this one, when I took it off, was actually pretty tight. So I'm going to make sure it's on the tighter side. So now we're going to plug in some of the electrical connectors, but I'm going to leave the ones in this area for the very last. We're going to plug this connector in. You should hear a click. We're going to put a little bit of dielectric grease on all the fittings too, around the connections. So you should hear a click when it goes in. When you hear that, give it a little tug, but you're all the way on. Oh, then I had pulled this off too. I just used a pair of pliers to squeeze it and it pulled right out. So now we're going to shove this in to keep those wires in place. Didn't touch any of that stuff. Now we'll plug this connector in. And then we got this connector up here. As well as this one right here. And then we'll make sure we push that down so it's locked, so it can't come off. There we go. At this point in time, we can get this hose back on too. And we can use our pliers to slip that on. Perfect. And we can put our clamps back on these wires too. They just wrap around and then shove back up. Just like so. Same with that one. So I'll keep those in place, nice. So we're all good here. So our last piece to put on is our boot going between the throttle and the airbox. And then once that's on, then we're able to finish our last connector here. We got this guy here, we'll leave off a little bit longer. We should be pretty good. All right, so we're not going to put these on yet, but we are going to slip our hose clamps on. So you want to have these hooks facing away from you, and then this way you're looking at the fastener when you put it back together. So that will slip right on here. And these rubbers separate the cables. And on here you can see that there's a flat metal piece, and I can see where that was located. So I'm going to put that in the same spot so everything's exactly where it was from the factory. And then I can slip this in at the same time. And you want it so it's slightly loose so you know it's not going to hold you up when you shove it on. And we'll do the same with the other one. And now we're going to slip this on. Make sure it's clean on our surfaces. Oh, and this is kind of the hardest part that I had getting off was, or one of the hardest parts I had getting off. So we're going to carefully slip this on. We're going to try to get it on the intake first and then onto the air box. All right, we got that boot on now. And there's 2 locators on this boot to make sure it's in the right spot. So right here, there's a little tab. It's hard to see, but it has 2 grooves that it fits between. And then on the airbox side, there's a little tab on the airbox, and it fits between that. Still pretty hard to see. We want to make sure that those are in the right spot, and then you know that your boot's in the right spot. And now we're going to put a little bit of never seize on our clamps, and then we're going to tighten those up. And this is why you orient those in the right fashion. So you're looking right at it, otherwise it'd be facing the other way and it'd be almost impossible to get on or to tighten up. And these don't need to be crazy tight or anything. All right, so that's done. Now we got 3 vacuum hoses to put on. So we got this hose here. Here's one. And then we got this one here. Then we got this one here. And we want to get this electrical connector on. And then we can shove this back in. And I had disconnected that just to give me a little more working room, to be a little bit easier, because it's kind of in the way, so it made it a lot easier to work. And I almost forgot, we got to do our throttle wire. So it would have been easier before putting those hoses on, but we can still get to it. It's just right down there. Yeah, that's the most important one. That's the one that makes us go, right? Alright, so those are all on. Our last thing to put on is our 3 bolts to hold our raceway on for our wires. Now we can tighten these up. We'll snug them up first and then we'll tighten them. And they don't need to be crazy tight. Alright, the last thing left to do is put our top cover on. But we're going to fire the car up first, and we're going to check for leaks and everything and make sure we have no issues before we put that cover on. Alright, that was good. We're going to put the cover on. So this cover has 4 spots on it with rubbers. So this is the front of the cover. So these are close to the front and these are kind of partway in the middle. And you have these studs. You have one there and one there, and then one there and one there. And that's what we're lining up on, and then we just push it down. So you can kind of use your oil as a bit of a locator. And that's on. So the easiest way is to locate the front ones, slip it on, roll it back, kind of give a little jiggle, and then push down. So last thing we're going to do is change our clothes and go for a ride and make sure everything's good, but it seems awesome. I'm not going to show that part on the video. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click the notification button. Also check me out on Instagram at Clara Garage. You can also join and become a member and get a couple little extra perks. Not too many, but a couple little extra videos sooner and all that fun stuff. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.